A mentor said to me a long time ago, we've all got two lists. We've got important list and we've got urgent list. And I think when it comes to leveling up in your family, we must, as fathers, as husbands, as men, we must focus on the important list, because you're always going to have the busy list. It's always going to be there. Another mentor said to me a long time ago as well, he goes, there's two rules in life. Great man he was, JB, and helped me so much in that early boxing years as a professional. The first rule, JB said, was don't sweat the small stuff. And he said rule number two, it's all small stuff, so it doesn't matter. And I think, you know, with my family, I've got children now from 11 to 27, and the way that I raised the older one or two, even three, are completely different to the way I raised the middle the middle section, and then the younger ones. They've all had a different childhood, because I mean, yeah, dynamics in the family is changing, and how I used to level up maybe 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, is completely different. The dynamics have changed. But you know, there was a few years back where I got hooked on Matthew 28, where it said, go into all the world and make disciples. And I get that. I was, you know, with the businesses I've had, I'm always reaching out. But there was a fine line between, you know, if you haven't got things right at home, it's near going to be impossible for you to go out there into the world, and whether it be business, whether it be run charities, whether it be have impact, if things aren't good at home, it's going to be near impossible. Or, you know, some people have said to me, you know, clean your own house first, Gav. and of course, if somebody's saying that, of course you've got to take that on board. Well, I suppose they don't have to, but you know, they were looking at something in my personal world. So a mentor, another mentor that was helping me. But I think when it comes to, you know, leveling up in your family and building a family, building a culture that supports a family, it's almost as if, rather than making disciples in your home, because obviously your wife don't want to be a disciple. If she's anything like my wife, young kids, that's not what it's about. That's not what the scripture is about. But I believe, the way, my language, we've got to build a team. You know, we build a team at home, and as the kids have grown up, like, it's been a bit of an unwritten law, an unwritten rule. Everyone's got to help somebody. You know, as the kids are growing up, I remember, you know, young guys saying to me, oh man, how the heck do you do, you know, they've got one or two kids, how do you do 7? It's like, man, it's actually after 4 it gets easier, because everyone is helping somebody. You know, that's kind of the thing. So that's when it comes to building a team. But obviously, as men, as husbands, as fathers, as leaders, we must be casting a vision that inspires our wives, inspires our children. And a massive mistake men make, I believe, I've seen, of course I've made these mistakes myself. You know, it hasn't led to divorce, it hasn't led to other, you know, terrible things that could have happened. But the truth is that this is what they say, right? They say 30% of divorces as a result of not aligned with their money. Okay, so that comes down to, obviously, communication and a vision. If a husband and wife have got two different visions, man, that's going to end in disaster. So we can, obviously, me and my wife completely different. We want different things, but together we complement each other. So it's about being really clear, gentlemen. And I think, you know, just, I mean, whether it be in America, UK, the divorce rate is between 40 and 45%, even up in some parts in America, they're saying it's at 50%, gentlemen. And even that's in Christian men who take a vow. So there's something up here, gentlemen. So hence, this is why I'm making this video. But, you know, statistics say the two biggest things that let, you know, husbands and wives down, so you're not able to level up, one is communication and the other one is unresolved issues. Gentlemen, we've all got issues. If you don't think you have, you've got a massive one, okay? So we've all got to be working through stuff, meaning we've got to give some leeway to ourselves and obviously to others. But I think when it comes to leveling up in your family, it's got to start with you. This guy, it's got to start with you leveling up, you lifting your standards, you doing what you say, you casting a vision, then having the courage to go after it, and of course that, for me, that's the essence of leadership, going first. But when it comes to, like, Ephesians 5:25 says, love your wife. Love your wife. Obviously there's some scriptures before enough, but the essence of it is love your wife. She ain't perfect, but either are you. But I think that is a great example for your sons, for your daughters, for the community, to actually love your wife. Improve communication, get over stuff, man, grow through it. But this is just a couple of things. I want to talk to maybe guys that have got younger kids and even teenage and adult kids as well. Just a couple of tips, that's all, through making mistakes, of course. So, but the first thing, and I'm surprised, with the thousands of men that I've mentored over the years and coached, I'm so surprised at the amount of men I say to them, so what's your wife want? What's your wife's dream? What are the desires of your wife's heart? And they kind of scratch their head. It's like, I'd never thought about that. I just assumed. And that's a massive mistake, gentlemen. I would encourage you, maybe after, as we go through this video, I'm going to encourage you to take down some notes or whatever. And that's one. When was the last time you asked your wife and said, what is it that you really want? Maybe in a year's time, maybe in 5 years' time. My suggestion would be, whatever she says, close your mouth. Don't try and fix her, justify it, make it better, or do anything. Just ask and say, that's amazing, and then what would you like to do? I mean, gentlemen, I'm telling you, it does work, okay? But if you're like me, you're an action guy, you want to make stuff happen, this is when you must be still. You must listen, okay? I would say the second thing, because most men, we're doers, we want to take action, right? I would say look for something. This is about leveling up as a husband. Look for something that you can almost make a sacrifice. I mean, the scripture says that we live a life of sacrifice. We lay our lives down for the people we love. We lay our lives down for our families, our wives. So look for something that obviously she would rather not do, and you do it. Whether it be a physical thing, maybe it's have a hard conversation, maybe it's do something. I'm sure you can find something. Maybe it's something just so simple. The third thing, and this is what every person wants, your time. Give your wife some time. I'll never forget years ago, we had a gym and we're running these big events, and we're in the office, there's people coming in and out. I've shared this before, but her desk was next to mine, and everyone's coming out, and I guess I was barking orders, the feedback. And I remember when people left, and I asked her, I thought I asked her, look, love, could you do this? I remember turning and going, I don't, and she doesn't swear. She goes, I don't work for you. I thought, oh, you're right, you don't. But gentlemen, when we get in mission mode, we can do that. I can act like, man, a drill sergeant. And that doesn't get you leveling up as a husband in your family, etc. So the amount of men I've coached over the years, and it happens more, this one thing happens more often than not. And what I'm getting to, we've all got something that's didn't go to plan in our childhood, okay? And literally, more times than not, it's always a guy will say, my father did this, or my father, he didn't do that, or he wasn't there, or what, as so from naught to 12, you know. I've had 7 kids go through that. The youngest one's 11, nearly there. But, you know, really, they always say kids spell love, T-I-M-E, you know, time, you know. And if we're good listeners, and if we're looking for those moments to have, and I think we actually create those moments, you know, as fathers, as dads, we create those moments, man. That's our job. When we're on mission as well, I always look for things to create. I even I laugh. I make picking up the horse poo in the paddock. I try and make it some fun. They're awake to me now. But I got away with it for the first couple of years. Right? But you know what? In a way, I'm trying to teach them how to apply themselves to horse poo. But they're all awake to me now, you know. But what I'm saying is we laugh about it. You know, I got my kids busking. I remember when the older ones were younger, before all the social media stuff, I would say, let's go to the beach, let's go to the beach, pile up in my van. On the way to the beach, I'd pull up 500 metres or whatever, give them 1,000 flies. We'd give out flyers on the way. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. You know, their friends loved it. You know, so I suppose what I'm saying is, man, we got to be responsible for creating great stories, not bad ones. So when we can actually have fun, be a fun dad, we can make this a great experience. I always look for ways to get my children involved in the different businesses that I've had. Sometimes I think I've created stuff for them, you know, to actually, so I can encourage them, teach them, particularly when they get into their teenage years. But I remember even my oldest son, I had a boxing gym and I had other trainers working out of there. So people would pull up for a training session, 30-minute training session, 45 minutes. My son on school holidays would set up, and even before school, would set up a hose and a bucket. He'd be almost ushering people in. Hey, your car will be picked. You'll be 30 minutes, 45 minutes. How long's your session? And you have the car clean by the time. He was just making, as a 10-year-old, like that was probably 15 years ago, he would make sometimes up to $100 a day. Sometimes I think he was making more than the traders, goodness me. Some of the new ones. But hey, it's building something. So I don't know what you're doing as a father, as a man, but I know there's always room for improvement. One of the things I've loved as my kids are getting older, you know, they're all sort of coming on to teenage years now, apart from one, but she's a teenager, having all, 6 elder siblings, and really watching the way my dad has fathered me and the stories he's told me. Man, there's so many great opportunities, but I think when it comes to, as I said at the start, where that scripture says, go into all the world and make disciples, this is the age where I think when your kids are teenagers, that's when we take on the role as a coach, maybe as a mentor. That's when we really start to disciple them, and really when we understand their hearts. Sons and daughters, we must understand their heart, and that we must grow with them, obviously, of course. The dynamics change. But I remember my father telling me stories. I always love this story where his grandfather would take him as, went back in the day, okay, when pubs closed at 6 o'clock. Okay, my dad, as a little boy, would go with his grandfather, and they had a chicken raffle, right? And what he would do is he'd be going around the pubs before the 6 o'clock closing. This is my dad telling me these stories, right? And he would be running truck raffles, but it was all to tell everyone to get in the pubs, to tell everyone come back to his DOS house, this accommodation, cheap accommodation, to run illegal gambling. crown and anchor. And then like even that, they were able to buy that property from when he went through the Second World War. He would run this crown and anchor game on the trains as they were going through Europe. Like this is stories that, so it's like that story. My dad picked up things that we make stuff happen. We create businesses out of nothing, out of great ideas, out of benefiting people. I don't know how the gambling went, but it was drawing a crowd. They were getting drunk and they were gambling and they were laughing and having fun. So I don't know, but you know, like this is the legacy that we can leave, gentlemen, as fathers. As, you know, and of course there's stories. I know there's stories in every family that are not good. But sometimes, you know, my mum's dad, the old boy, there were some stories I heard of him growing up that were not so good. But we can learn from them. You know, that's what I'm talking about, gentlemen. We obviously we give these stories to our children at the right time so they can learn and grow. But I'm talking about leveling up in your family, gentlemen. So as we got to be, I believe we've got to be capturing these stories and not what's the word, like not falsifying, but actually getting an angle that our children can benefit from. You know, getting an angle on it. I've said many times, I said in my Rite of Passage book, I say it there where my you know, the old boy's wife, Nana Ursula, she had this saying, man, you know, like she had 7 kids as well, and she would always have 3 jobs. Like he didn't work, he was a gambler, an alcoholic, lost a lung in the war, so he couldn't really breathe. He just sat in front of the chair watching horse races and smoking and drinking, basically. That's what I remember of him growing up. And so she would work 3 jobs. She was always cooking meals for kids, ironing. She was always getting herself ready, go to the next job. And she had this, a little Scottish lady, she had this accent. And she, it's a good life if you don't weaken, son. So she would just keep going and going. So there's all these stories, gentlemen, I'm sure that are in your family that you can use to level up your family, to really create something unique in them. So, and I love the story, you know. I'll wind this up, but you know, I've got a bank of stories, what I'm saying. My dad is actually, his name's Lance Lester Top, but his first job, he actually rode a horse to work. Okay, and his horse's name was Jack, so they nicknamed him at his first job after his horse, Jack. He's in his 70s. Everyone calls him Jack. Nobody even knows what his real name is. You do now. But you get what I'm saying, gentlemen. So there's so many stories. Like we've just done 2 years in Malta. The reason we went there was my wife's dream, but the reason I wanted to go there and support that, man, there's so much culture there. There's so much culture in her family. Her grandfather, obviously her father, but her grandfather's just old school Maltese, you know. And man, it just, we got to experience, like they've still got 2 bits of real estate in Malta, you know. One of the houses is 430 years old. It's got a well in the middle. I wanted to drink the water. I wanted my children to drink that water. I wanted to splash that water all over my kids, and I got to. So this is what it's about, creating stories, creating memories, creating an adventurous life as a dad. And I believe that's been the best way for me to level up and have fun doing it. You know, for a while there I was trying to start a rumour that, hey, I'm the cool dad. Didn't really take off. But you know, I had a lot of fun doing it, you know. So, and I think one of the best things that I've enjoyed to do over the years, I mean, there's so many best things, but really, you know, when my children, you know, particularly as teenagers and whatever, have friends, I like to talk to them and ask questions. Sometimes my kids have told me to be quiet. But I like to just see who the heck are my kids hanging around with? Who the heck are they hanging around with? So, you know, from time to time I'll get a young guy come on a date, one of my daughters. So I like to ask him about 25, maybe 35 questions. Some would say grill them, but I want to know who they are. And by the end of it, I get to know them quite well, you know. So all I'm saying, gentlemen, is, hey, listen, from all reports, you get one life. And there's many men, there's many children that their fathers pass away way too quick. So gentlemen, I don't know how long you got, but I know you got today. You're listening to it. And these are just some tips that maybe you can take one or two of them. You know, I would start with, you know, I always like to finish these videos with a task, an action. You know, you're an action man. So maybe your wife, ask her, what do you want, love? What is your dream? What do you really want? You know? And maybe you say, hey, listen, I don't want an answer now. Have a think about it. She may just tell you something that might blow you away. You know, look, the second thing I'd say is start to have a look for things you can do with your kids, activities, things they haven't done before. You know, things that, you know, might be a little bit risky, a little bit dangerous, but hey, you know what? You'll have fun doing it. So, hey, leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Share this with somebody if you think they'll benefit from it. Over and out.